An exclusive interview now, a top doctor exposing everything the deep state is trying to hide about CV. Welcome to the Next News Network, my friends. I'm Gary Franchi. We are in day 9 of the Trump administration's 15-day Slow the Spread campaign. But the man who at the age of 14 in 1978 invented email, yes, the inventor and copyright holder of email. Oh yes, Dr. Shiva, welcome to the Next News Network.
Great to be here, Gary. Thanks for having me.
You posted something last week that I reported on, your tweet, and this is where you said that the CV fear, the fear-mongering by the deep state will go down in history as one of the biggest frauds to manipulate economies, suppress dissent, and push mandated medicine.
I've been a student of politics since I was a kid because I grew up in India, which had a caste system. I was considered an untouchable, which is the lowest of the Indian caste system. The medical system we're moving towards is a top-down system, totally controlled by big pharma, big ag, and big vaccine manufacturers. Sustainable development goals, signed off by the United Nations and all their countries in 2015. It's called SDG 3, which was signed in 2015. They paint a utopia, Gary. It's this utopia of the elites. Subsequently, in an Immunization 2030 document as an addendum to that, they say the way we get to utopia, these 17 goals, is we must immunize everyone on the planet, e.g. vaccinate everyone. And the reason this is important is, look, I created a company called Cytosolve, one of the other inventions I did out of my PhD work, to use the computer to understand chemical reactions in our body and on our cell, to basically use a computer to model diseases so we could eliminate the need for animal testing. So Cytosolve is this amazing invention which allows me to do in a different way what my grandmother did intuitively, which is to understand the combinations and mixtures of chemicals to figure out medicines from food and natural products faster, cheaper, and safer. When I built that, I said, wow, pharma guys would want to use this because it takes them 15 years to build a drug, $5 billion. And I don't know if you know this, the pharma industry is in peril right now. They're not making any money, really any money from pharmaceutical drugs because lots and lots of investment in R&D, and they're getting less and less new drugs allowed by the FDA because of their toxicity. So what pharma companies have moved to is vaccines. The 1986, the Vaccine Court was created. John Kennedy implemented the National Vaccination Act in 1962 under a fake science or an outdated science of the understanding of the immune system. That led to many injuries that took place between 1962 to 1986. In a response to those injuries, another Kennedy, Ted Kennedy, led the creation of the National Vaccine Injury Program, which led to the creation of the vaccine courts, not in the judicial department, but under Health and Human Services, which basically allowed indemnification of vaccine manufacturers so you couldn't sue them, and the maximum liability for death was $250,000, okay? And so we're at a situation now that for pharma companies, vaccines are pure profit, no liability, no risk, they can't get sued. When I came into looking at the one-size-fits-all vaccine program, there were other activists in this field, and frankly, many of them were controlled opposition. People like Bobby Kennedy was playing a good game saying he's against vaccines. Meanwhile, he endorses Hillary Clinton, who is vaccine queen, okay? So the position I took was I said, we need to really educate people on the immune system. You'll see the videos I started doing. They started going viral, and the movement started taking off. And then, in fact, 5 days before the coronavirus stuff hit, about a week before, is when we won a major victory in New Jersey against these vaccine mandates. The deep state of a few set of people, from the Gates Foundation to the Zuckerbergs to Hillary Clinton, congealed with the UN and the deep state elites. They're going to fear monger on coronavirus because of the ignorance of the medical profession. Most MDs do not know what the immune system is. They don't even study nutrition. Based on that ignorance, they were going to scare the hell out of people with the coronavirus to essentially say, we need to do this for the quote-unquote common good. That's what we're seeing go on.
There's speculation, considerable speculation, that the virus is actually a manufactured bioweapon. Now, the State Department, among others, are pushing back against that narrative, simply calling it Chinese and Russian disinformation.
What happens is this kind of virus, if you think about a big ball representing your cell, these little particles land on that cell, and their goal is to get into the cell and use your cell's machinery to replicate themselves. We have about 380 trillion viruses in our body. It's called the virome. We have about 60 trillion bacteria in our body, and we have about 6 trillion cells, which is what we're made of. Coronavirus is a class of viruses that create flus. These ones create respiratory syndrome. The coronavirus in Wuhan was a different strain than the one that was in Iran versus the one that was in Italy. And there's reports that I've read, it's hard to verify a lot of this, that all of those different viruses go back to one common branch, which actually goes back to Fort Detrick, okay, in the United States and North Carolina. The U.S. deep state sent people over to Wuhan, and that's how it got given in China. This is one theory. Whether it came in or not, my view is that if you believe in the concept of a set of people who don't care about the U.S. national interest or the Chinese national interest or the Indian national interest or Italian, they're more care for their own global interests. You could view a scenario where it got created by the deep state and got put out there. What was going on at this time? Hong Kong was blowing up. Remember that? And what people do not know is 6 months before the coronavirus, there were massive anti-pollution protests by Chinese citizens in Wuhan. You don't protest in China without risking your life. It's not like they have the First Amendment there. So large numbers of people are taking to the street and protesting, tens of thousands, because the Chinese government was going to build one of the largest incinerator plants there, which was going to just spew out pollution. And the people in China, the everyday people, really care about their health, and there have been pollution protests since 2007, extremely growing, and then you don't hear any news about it. You see Hong Kong completely disappear, serves the globalists. When you're a student of politics and a student of medicine, you start seeing these connections. Of the 30 vaccines recommended by the CDC for young kids, not one of them has been a saline placebo control tested. And in fact, the one that they said they did a test on the HPV Gardasil vaccine, it was a fraudulent test.
That doesn't surprise me. So what do you think is going to happen with this vaccine? Do you think they're going to roll it out? Do you think they're going to mandate it like they just passed that law in Denmark?
What they're saying is there's this boogeyman called the virus, and you need the vaccine to help you stop that, okay? Boogeyman, savior. Savior's Bill Gates, Clinton Global Initiative, etc., Big Pharma. If you actually understood the immune system, it's laughable. The reality is the immune system has evolved over billions of years. We grew up in bacteria and viruses. We're supposed to play out in dirt. That's how the immune system gets turned on. So what happens is it's people who have immunocompromised immune systems, which means their immune systems are not firing on all cylinders. So imagine you have 3 cylinders, it's only firing on 2. You know what happens? The third cylinder has to take up all the effort, right? Well, that third cylinder in immunology is called cytokines. It fires so hard that it overreacts. And it starts not only attacking the virus surface, but also starts attacking your own tissue. So it's your own body attacks itself because of a weakened and dysfunctional immune system. Well, how do you get a weakened and dysfunctional immune system? Eat sugar all day. Eat a diet that's no longer has any vitamin D and nutrients. And that's why I wrote that letter to the President of the United States. This is really about immune health. This is the fact that we don't get enough vitamin D, we don't get enough vitamin A, we don't get enough vitamin C. I mean, there's other things, but we can focus on those 3 things. In Chad, in African country of Chad and Djibouti, there's only been 1 COVID case and no deaths. Why is that? Well, because people live probably lives that we should probably think about living. They're out in the sun. They're, digging up roots. We may consider these people third world. So the solution is pretty simple. At least get out in the sun. If you can't do that, you got to boost up on vitamin D, vitamin D, vitamin D. We're not getting sun. We're not getting fruits and vegetables. A depleted culture for 25 years. Monsanto, those pesticides affect the gut microbiome, which throw our gut off. And then we're eating high sugars. I mean, it's a recipe for death. But we're not addressing that. We're like hyping up this virus. And what is the result? You have people hiding out in homes, people getting ready to accept fascism, not addressing the fundamental issue, which is immune health.
I'm envisioning a time where we're going to see the same thing. Coronavirus vaccine is free for everyone today, right? So that's, I think, a future.
Well, it's going to be even more. It's going to even be more unfortunate than that. It'll be, oh, Gary, your driver's license is coming up for renewal. Did you get all your vaccines? You can't travel. Hey, you can't take the train or the bus. Hey, you can't go to the gym. You can't go here. This is where this is headed. A gym will say, well, we can't allow you in here, Gary. We don't want to harm all of our other people, right? Do you remember when, who was it? Michael Jordan played with the flu. People are like, wow, look at Michael. He's playing there with the flu. He's strong, right? This entire thing is a master setup. It's chess move after chess move. And it's brought to you by Anthony Fauci.
But now we're learning from the WikiLeaks drops that he is a huge supporter of Hillary Clinton, and somebody you have actually called destructive. Why should we be concerned with the advice that the president is getting from Fauci?
Anthony Fauci, in my view, should be indicted. If people actually knew what this guy actually did, he's been with the government since Reagan times, 40, 50 years. And then Bush and Obama and all of the presidents up to here. How did he build his career? He built his career on the false narrative that HIV causes AIDS. Peter Duesberg, who I've spoken to, who was a truly great scientist, the youngest guy to get tenure at Berkeley. And Peter said, wait a minute, there is no causal relationship between this virus, HIV, which he considered a very harmless virus, and AIDS. He was vilified, all of his grants went away. And the guy that promoted this lie was Fauci's predecessor by the name of Gallo, Robert Gallo. Robert Gallo was brought up on scientific misconduct charges. He literally stole the HIV virus from France. He couldn't produce enough of the virus because they couldn't find it. He created a bogus HIV test. Fauci came to his rescue. I think there was a power play. Fauci essentially took the lead. Gallo was put into the back, and that was the beginning of this guy's career. He writes about how he hangs out with Bono and, remember the whole AIDS and all the stupid celebrities getting involved in this nonsense, right?
Oh, yeah.
This was so Fauci, he's a veteran of this. This ain't his first rodeo. He learned how to create bogus science, to promote bogus science, to create the fear of HIV causes AIDS. Billions of dollars were spent on this. A lot of people died because people used drugs like AZT. I had a very good friend of mine who died from it. And, people didn't learn HIV is frankly a harmless virus. Okay? The people who were dying from it were, again, immunocompromised. Gays at that time, were having 1,500 partners. Were doing meth, amphetamines, all sorts of drugs. They were destroying their immune system. You had IV drug users who were destroying their immune system, and you had people getting blood transfusions, not because of the virus in the blood, but because they would get immunosuppressive drugs. The simple point here from a scientific standpoint is when you lower and you destroy the immune system. So Fauci doesn't want to talk about that. Everything is about the boogeyman of viruses. Fauci knows what he's doing. He is the face of pharma and vaccines, and he sees his opportunity to become the hero in all of this.
The one big narrative that I've seen that's been presented is that, more people die from the flu. But there's this massive, massive, terrifying visual of people being intubated and people eating bats and all this horrific visual propaganda. And now states are in lockdown mode. National Guard has been deployed. State guards have been deployed. Tents are being set up in cities and Walmart parking lots and hospital parking lots. And you're having this spirit of fear descend on this country and the world at large. But why don't we do the same thing for the flu?
You have to understand, pharma and media work very closely together. Many, many years ago, one of the companies I built, I had my second life with email. I originally did it for the Clinton White House. They ran a contest. I was a graduate student at MIT to automatically read and process emails. I ended up winning that contest, Gary, and I started a company called Echo Mail. When I created that technology, I had many people starting to want to use this for analyzing email. One of the companies that was very interested in knowing about this was one of the leading PR companies in the world called Burson Marsteller. And I remember going out as a young entrepreneur, I was running my company, meeting with one of the senior executives. And this was over dinner, and he was openly boasting about how Burson helps companies in crisis management. And he was saying that Eli Lilly, at that time, was having a major problem. Prozac sales were going down.